I'll never forget that day, Friday, September the 6th, 2023. A day which was grey, cold and miserable, and I made my way from my rural village across London for what I thought was going to be another regular consultation. But that was a day that was going to change my life. And this is my story. Let's go to the video. Hello and welcome back to Scrambled Eggs, the channel for the over 55s, because it matters, because we matter. And I'm Phil, and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be telling you my story. The story of that week beginning on Friday, the 6th of September 2023, which changed my life. And hopefully I'm going to be answering some of the questions that you have about heart surgery recovery. I'm facing heart surgery, and what can I expect? I'm facing heart surgery. Is it safe or not? I'm going to tell the story of my experience. And my experience was complicated by the fact that I live alone. So I consider myself a survivor, and here I am. And now it's time to share my story. According to National Health Service statistics, there are around 7.6 million people walking around the UK who suffer from a heart condition. Some may know about it, some may not. Of that 7.6 million people, 28,000 underwent serious major heart surgery last year. And I was one of them. And heart problems are not always about the lifestyle that you have led, although some of them will be. And undergoing major heart surgery will make you look at your lifestyle and help you to make changes for the better afterward. But there are also a number of other things that cause it. Mine, for example, was not caused primarily by lifestyle. It was caused by something that they called a bridge, something that happened to me at birth. One of the major arteries feeding blood to my heart actually went underneath the muscle rather than going on the surface where it should have been. And over time, that artery, as far as I can understand, got constricted, caused a heart attack, and that led to a major disruption in blood flow feeding my heart. And following my brief consultation with the surgeon on the 6th of September last year, he decided that it was time to do the surgery. And so my surgery was booked in that day for the following Monday. And at that point, I'm petrified. I live alone. I have no support at home. My first thought was, will I still be able to manage to go on holiday, which I had booked for February of the next year? I was concerned also that living alone may cause problems for me following my discharge. But during that consultation, all my questions were answered. All my worries about the surgery in terms of its safety, my expectancy to survive, were answered. And at the end of the day, it was decided that on the following Monday, the 9th of September, they would perform a quadruple bypass and save my life. And so I was going to be admitted on the Sunday, which meant that I had one day to get things ready. I had so much to do and so little time. They had given me a very, very detailed booklet of what to bring, what to expect when I arrive, what will happen after the surgery, and what to do when I get home. It was a big booklet with a lot of pages and a lot of writing. My stress levels and my fear levels were at an all-time high. I wasn't in the mood for reading, but I read briefly through it. But if you are expecting heart surgery in the near future, I will summarize what this document says. But as I live alone, it was complicated, and I had to make sure not only that I had everything to go into hospital, but I had things that were going to be helpful when I got home. And the first thing I did, obviously, was pack. I just didn't need much. I put in a fresh pair of pajamas, a dressing gown, a book, and made sure I had my phone charger. And I also made sure that my phone was fully charged on the Sunday so that if something went wrong with the transportation, I would be able to contact them. So that was just simple packing, and quite rightly so, because you don't need much afterwards. Of course, you need your toothbrush, your razor, and any other toiletries that you think you will need. As I was living alone, I needed to prepare food for my return. So I batched cooked a couple of meals, enough to last me probably 10 days, and I popped them in the freezer. But I also stocked my bedroom with things that would be easy to microwave and eat, including tins of tuna. I also stockpiled about 10 tins of chili and about 10 tins of soup. I felt that if I needed to eat, these would be very simple things just to pull off the top, and then I would have food. It was a really strange thing to do, quite paranoid really, but at the end of the day, I suspect that those tins might have saved my life. And also over the weekend, as soon as the news was placed on Facebook that I was going in, my lovely adopted daughters called me for over an hour just to reassure me, and they called me Friday night and Saturday before I went in on the Sunday. I can't express how precious those calls were to me and what strength they gave me. And then I had a reason to get through this. I had a reason to fight, and I knew I was going to get through this. And so on Sunday lunchtime, I made my way across London again and was admitted. Expect a warm smile and compassion and a great deal of understanding, because they know what you are going through. They will take the opportunity to prepare you early. They'll hook you up to an ECG machine. They'll do some simple tests, and they will insert the cannula where they will be feeding you medications and anything else that your body will need pre and post surgery. And apart from that, you just relax and settle in. They will check on you, feed you and water you. There's plenty of tea and coffee and warm smiles. And I am glad that I was given the choice to come in on the Sunday rather than the Monday morning just before the surgery in the afternoon. I think I was given that choice because of the distance that I had to come, and I'm glad I took that opportunity. If you are given the choice to go in the day before, I would take it, because it does allow you to settle in and to acclimatise yourself to the ward and the people that you're going to spend 5 or 6 days with. And so the day of the surgery had arrived. I do remember feeling very, very scared, but the rest of the day is just a blur. Feeling nervous, feeling scared is a normal thing, and I was told afterwards that everybody will feel that. I do remember I had a light breakfast, a shower with some special soap, and then they came and shaved my chest area because electrodes are going to be put there and they were going to open up the chest. So they took all the hair away from my chest. I never had a hairy chest anyway, so it really didn't bother me. I do remember another couple of tubes being inserted, which is again something that you might need during the surgery. And then they put me onto a trolley and I was wheeled off towards the pre-op room, which is just next to the theatres. I do remember a very gentle speaking nurse standing over me, and she told me that very soon they were going to put me off to sleep. And that's the last thing I remember about the day of the surgery. They woke me up about 36 hours later. I was in ICU. I'd been in ICU for longer than what is average. And I knew that was going to happen. They'd informed me before the surgery that there was a slight risk of me developing breathing problems, so they probably would keep me in ICU a little bit longer than most. I woke up feeling disorientated and I couldn't really figure out where I was for a minute. And it took me about 5 or 10 minutes to remember that I had undergone the surgery. I couldn't work out what all these tubes were doing inside me. I'd got several other tubes inserted which hadn't been removed and were going to be removed during the week, and we'll talk about those just in the next section. But it was a sense of total confusion for 5 or 10 minutes, but they were very, very good. They got me breathing very well. I had exhibited apparently some breathing difficulty, so they'd kept me on the breathing machine longer than normal. But when they took me off, they told me that I was breathing perfectly normally. They began there and then teaching me breathing techniques, and I started to feel better around about 15 to 30 minutes after I was woken up. It wasn't long after that, maybe an hour or 2 hours, when they decided that I was breathing perfectly adequately on my own, that they wheeled me off to the ward. And I was met with a lot of happiness in the ward from the other patients, some of whom had made it back to the ward before me. And there was a great sense of happiness that we'd all come through it. And that was the beginning of now the recuperation phase. And so the next section to look at is what happens next what happens for the next 5 days. And so, for the next 4 or 5 days, their total focus is on getting you home. They do not want you sitting in hospital doing nothing. They want you to be at home. They feel that being at home is the best place for you to recuperate. And they are correct. You need to be getting home as fast as possible. And that is what they do. They will get you up walking the day after the operation. It doesn't matter how groggy you feel at that point. They will get you walking some steps. It's good for you. The more you walk, the better you are going to feel. The more independent you are going to become. As the week progresses, you will be going to toilet by yourself, you will take a shower by yourself, and you will begin to walk further. And at the end of the week, the last few days, they will be walking you up and down stairs. It's important that you are able to walk up and down stairs a few times before they will let you go home. This is to make sure that you are fit enough to be at home, especially if you live alone, when you go home. And so this all takes just 4 to 5 days. And during that time, they one by one will remove all the tubes that you have had inserted in you. Some of them are more painful than others. The larger tubes that I had in my stomach area were very painful when they removed them. But most of them are fairly straightforward. And the final one, the cannula that they put in right at the beginning, that also can be a little bit painful. But once it's done, you're fine. You have nothing to worry about in the week that you are recovering in a hospital. They will take good care of you and they will get you fit, they will get you up walking, and they will help you to some sort of independence before you get home. But will there be problems? Yes, of course. This is major surgery that you have just gone through. And so there's a few things that we have to talk about that are going to be minor irritations, some are going to be bigger irritations, and some are going to be a little bit painful. Firstly, you're going to find it difficult to breathe. You're going to be feeling short of breath at times, but they are going to teach you breathing techniques and you will learn to breathe normally in a very short time. It is uncomfortable at the beginning, but bear with them. They will get you breathing as normally as possible before you go home. Some people experience a loss of appetite. I did. I couldn't really finish all the food that I was given. I did try. I desperately tried hard to finish all the food, but at times it wasn't possible. But they are completely understanding of that. And if you can't finish something, they'll just tell you eat what you can. You do your best, and that's all that's expected of you. Eventually, your appetite will return. During that week, they will adjust your medication. They have all the medication that you brought in with you, and now they are going to adjust it. They may remove some, they may add some, and they will take the opportunity to do that when you are going to be discharged. They will give you medicine back enough for a few weeks so that you can now order the new prescription that you are going to be on following the surgery. And then there is the question, will I be in pain? Well, people suffer from pain in two varying degrees. And yes, it is likely that you are going to suffer some kind of pain. For me, I had a severe pain in my shoulders, and my lower back didn't feel that great either. This meant that I found it really difficult to sleep lying down. They want you to sleep on your back following this surgery for a little while. I was having real problems sleeping on my back. And so eventually I just ended up towards the end of the week just sleeping upright in the chair. And I felt a lot of pain. They do give you a lot of pain medication, and I was on morphine up until the day before I left. And whilst that helped, there are some pains that are just uncomfortable and unbearable, but you learn how to deal with that, and you're going to have to accept there's going to be a degree of pain following a procedure of this nature. Your body has gone through a major trauma, and it's going to take a little while for it to get back to normal. Yes, there will be pain. How severe it is will depend on the individual, and yes, you will get adequate medication to control that pain. Some people will suffer with constipation. I never actually had that during my time in hospital, and they never had to deal with it, but some people did, and that can be quite uncomfortable and quite painful too. And on top of the surgery, that can be an extremely difficult thing to deal with. However, they will give you medication and they will help with the constipation that sometimes develops within patients who've had heart surgery. But I think the worst thing that happens as a result is the phlegm. There is a phlegm that builds up in the lungs, which is particularly horrible. It's kind of dark and very sticky, and sometimes you cough up solid blocks of this, and it takes a while to clear. Mine took over a week, almost 2 weeks, before I finally said goodbye to this black phlegm that sometimes is almost solid. It's very sticky and horrible. The relief, though, when you finally get rid of it, is nothing short of bliss. Coughing also can be painful, and they will teach you how to cough. You'll be taught how to cough by crossing your arms and controlling the chest movement while you cross. But don't worry about that now, because they will teach you how to do that, as they taught me. And it does make coughing, which you have to do from time to time to remove that phlegm, a lot easier to deal with. When you've had your chest opened, coughing is going to be a problem. Coughing will not go away for a while. I think it took me about, a month and a half before I finally stopped coughing and was breathing properly, and everything seemed to be working properly again. It's going to take some time. But from somebody who has been through this experience, they will not let you go home unless they think you are ready. And on the 7th day following my admission, I was discharged and I went home. Going home was the hardest phase for me. I developed a number of problems, which meant that my recovery was probably delayed by about 2.5 weeks. Firstly, during my stay in hospital, I had developed a really bad head cold. This had got worse and worse as the week had gone on, and on the day of my discharge, I was feeling utterly miserable. By the time I got home, my head cold continued to get worse, and my appetite then followed. I could not eat anything. I couldn't even look at food. I tried so hard to eat the pre-cooked meals that I had made, but nothing seemed to work. I just deteriorated. I got worse and worse. And then on top of that, a few days later, I developed constipation. This was extremely painful. My back continued to be causing me pain. The coughing was extremely painful. I had been given medication, some quite strong medication to deal with the pain, but in the end, the pain had become too much. In the end, I was just in bed. I could not get up. I was losing hope. I did not know how to deal with this. And finally, the last straw, my hands had developed a problem. This is not uncommon, that there is some nerve damage after such a surgery, but this meant that I could not even pick my phone up. Things were in a bad way. But I kept thinking about my lovely adopted daughters, and the thoughts of those girls were what kept me going. And finally, I forced myself out of bed, and I forced myself to take the first few steps. It had taken 2.5 weeks. The constipation had cleared up, and my head cold was beginning to clear up. And I thought at that point, I'm through it. And so I made my first few steps down to the end of the drive. But at the end of the drive, I was so out of breath that I felt I needed to turn back. But there was also a sense of relief in this. I then began to start eating small amounts of food. I was starting my recovery. Over the next couple of weeks, I seemed to get stronger. I was walking further and further each day, adding a minute or so to each time I walked. And I started eating properly. In fact, I started overeating. My appetite had returned and I was eating everything and anything I could see. And I won't forget the day that I walked to the top of the street and back again. And that was a great relief. And now walking 6 kilometers every day is no problem. And I actually enjoy getting out, and I've begun the rest of my life now. It was a tough time for 2.5 weeks, but I got through it. I think had somebody been there with me, taking care of me, it would have been a much easier process. But this is something to be aware of if you do live on your own. And don't be afraid to get help if you can't cope. And I guess I've got something to learn from that too. And so when you get home, it's very, very important that you exercise. You exercise straight away. Don't wait. Start by taking small walks. It might be, as I did, just to the end of the drive. And when you can do that comfortably, add to it, and then add to that, and then add to that. And before you know it, within a couple of weeks, just like me, you'll be walking to the end of the street. And within a couple of months, you'll be walking a couple of kilometers. And then within 6 months, you will barely know that you have been through what you went through. Eating regularly is also important. If it had not been for those tins of chili and tuna and soup that I had hoarded before going into hospital, I don't think I would have made it. I ended up just eating out of those tins cold, and that's what sustained me over the first 2.5 weeks. Keep eating. Eat well, though. Eat small amounts regularly, and you'll build up your strength, and that will help you to pull through. And then finally, don't forget to manage your coughing in the way that they teach you. It's not easy at first, but you will get used to it, as I did. And finally, after a couple of months, the coughing will disappear. The phlegm will disappear within 2 or 3 weeks. But after a couple of months, the coughing will stop completely. You're going to feel like a brand new person after 3 to 4 months, just as I did. And I'm pretty sure your recovery is going to be a lot easier than mine. I think had I not developed that head cold, I would have been up and walking around much quicker than it took me in the end. Something to remember is that having heart surgery means that it's a change of lifestyle. It's a bit like losing weight, or it's a bit like getting a dog for Christmas. A dog is not just for Christmas. Losing weight does not mean that you can then go and put it back on immediately after you've lost the weight that you want to. You have to change your lifestyle. The future has to be different. The future has to be healthier. And going through heart surgery means that you are going to have to address that, and that your lifestyle is going to have to change. You're going to perhaps have to exercise more. If you're a smoker, then you're going to have to quit. And you're probably going to have to alter your diet. Doing away with all the processed food that you've been eating in the past is probably going to be required. It's a whole new way of life that you're about to embark on, a fitter, healthier, stronger way of life. At the end of it all, I feel like a new person. I am so grateful to the medical team that took care of me at St. George's Hospital. What a wonderful bunch of caring, kind people. And there is no way that I can ever repay them for what they have done for me. I am now a completely different person. And the best news of all was that 5 months later, I boarded the plane and I set off to Vietnam to be with my adopted daughters and enjoy a lovely holiday. I was back. That's it for this video. I just wanted to give you a perspective from a patient's point of view. There are a lot of so-called experts out there who tell you this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. But there are very few patients out there who are telling you what their experience of it is and the things that you will need to prepare yourself for, both the good and the bad. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it informative. And I hope that if you are facing heart surgery, if you are one of those 28,000 people next year that are going to go through this, that you go through it and sail through it, and that you come out healthier, stronger, fitter, and a better person for the experience. And so I will leave it there, and I will just say thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting the channel. Don't forget to do all that good stuff that you can see on the screen. Subscribe, like, communicate with me. If you have any questions that I haven't answered, I've tried to be as thorough as possible. Leave your questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. But most of all now, stay safe, take care, be strong, and we'll see you in the next video.